Mr. Daniel Sowa, Principal Industrial Officer from the Ministry of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry. Dr. Michael Appiah from the NDPC, representing the DG. Mr. Zonon Abdullahi, Coordinator of the ECOWAS Program of Community Development. Dr. Joan Kagwanja, who is the Coordinator of the Land and Agriculture at the UN Economic Commission for Africa. Captains of industries in the room, representatives of partner institutions and research institutions, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. So I am honored to deliver this statement on behalf of His Excellency, Commissioner Moses Vilakati, the African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment. And he also conveys his warm greetings and his unequivocal commitment to this Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, as we call it, the Common African Agro-Pax. So the Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana initiative, looking at the regional value chains for rice and cocoa, is actually contributing to a broader continental agenda, which is the Common African Agro-Pax, which looks at using agro-industrial developments as contributing to the regional integration agenda of the AU and also contributing to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And I think the coordinator of the CAPS, my colleague here, Mr. Ansem, will be giving us a quick presentation on what the CAPS is so that you can get a better picture in terms of how this study and the implementation, as Dr. Joan had said, is actually contributing to a broader continental agenda. So dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we need to be clear that implementing the Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana rice and cocoa value chain under the Common African Agro-Pax is not another project. It is designated to be a continental flagship of the AU's CAPS, one of the boldest pillars of Agenda 2063, designated to secure value sovereignty for our African farmers and our industries. Born from the shared vision of the heads of states of Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, and anchored in the Côte d'Ivoire Ghana Cocoa Initiative, this agenda is not only about cocoa. It is about moving from beans to brands, from informality to industry, and from exporting jobs to creating them here on our continent. Colleagues, we're meeting at a decisive moment. The pre-feasibility study has commenced, consultants has been contracted, and work is underway. And in parallel, following the high-level workshop in Lusaka, Zambia, almost 3 weeks ago, the CAPS Green Climate Fund process has been launched to prepare a climate-resilient investment package for Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. This is our runway to unlock climate finance and crowd in private capital if we show focus, speed, and unity. The outcomes of today's deliberations must therefore be concrete and consequential. Beyond validating the study on cross-border trade in cocoa and rice, this meeting should also try to identify additional staple commodities to be integrated in the Côte d'Ivoire-Ghana CAP zone, so that this common zone becomes a platform for food security, industrialization, and regional trade under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Business as usual is not an option. In the face of price volatility passed on to farmers, illegal cross-border trade that hollows out national revenues, underutilized processing capacity, and climate pressures that threaten yields and quality. So we're looking at having what we want to call a Ghana mandate from today's meeting. A mandate that should speak beyond technocratic checklists and rallies the nation around food sovereignty, decent jobs for our youth and women, and resilient food systems. First, what are we thinking about? The Ghana mandate should define a diversified product basket with cocoa and rice at the core, augmented by additional staples to be proposed by this House, using criteria that serve Ghana's strategic interests: import substitution, nutrition and affordability for households, job creation, SME participation, and climate resilience from farm to factory. And this is not diversification for its own sake, it is diversification with purpose. Secondly, this Ghana mandate should convert our borders from points of friction into bridges of prosperity. We call for a Ghana-Côte d'Ivoire facilitation package that operationalizes the African Continental Free Trade Agreement in real terms, such as practical rules of origin for our processed products, mutual recognition of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and quality standards to lessen delays, the dismantling of non-tariff barriers that quietly tax our farmers, and a priority, what we would like to call green lane, for agro inputs and outputs along the Côte d'Ivoire-Ghana corridor. When we lower the transaction costs borne by our producers and processors, we raise the competitiveness of made in Ghana, made in Africa. Thirdly, the Ghana mandate should speak the language of bankability and climate resilience. Together with our private sector champions, we can assemble a credible pipeline of investable projects, processing lines, storage and cold chains, packaging, logistics, and a clean energy backbone for the park. And in parallel, at the level of the EU Commission, we will fast-track the CAP's Green Climate Finance track that was launched in Lusaka, as I mentioned earlier on, to anchor adaptation for cocoa farmers, climate-smart rice systems, and a transparent measurement, reporting, and verification regime, which will be aligned with Ghana's nationally determined contributions. Climate finance must become a multiplier for industrialization and not a parallel conversation. To carry this mandate, Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire will constitute a lean, empowered steering group under the African Union auspices, public and private together, with a single scoreboard and tight accountability. And let us also recall and put it in our diaries that there will be an upcoming Africa Investment Forum in Morocco from the 26th to the 28th of November this year. And the African Union proposes to present about 10 to 15 common African agro-park zones. And Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire will also be presented to give a coherent offer and a diversified product basket to be endorsed by our stakeholders, a facilitation package ready for implementation, and a first cohort of projects ready to structure. Colleagues, our message is simple and clear from the African Union Commission. Africa will no longer be a price taker in value chains built on African raw materials. We choose to build competitive African industries, decent jobs, and resilient food systems here on our own continent. The African Union Commission stands ready to work hand in hand with the government of Ghana, the Côte d'Ivoire-Ghana Cocoa Initiative, the UN Economic Commission for Africa, Afrexim Bank, who has been one of our very supportive partners in providing the catalytic funding for most of the pre-feasibility studies we had undertaken both in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and also Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. And of course, the Forum for Agricultural Research in Africa, FARA, the AFCFT Secretariat, and our private sector partners for us to be able to deliver. Colleagues, the task is demanding. The opportunity is historic. So let us turn today's meeting into a contract with our farmers and entrepreneurs. More value created in Africa and more value kept in Africa. And together, we will make the Côte d'Ivoire-Ghana Common African Agro-Parks a continental beacon of resilience, integration, and inclusive growth. And I thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.